Some of my most successful photographs weren't taken in a forest, by a lake, or even in the garden. They were taken at home using a few strips of ribbon, some coloured card, and a camera moving for a fraction of a second. Some of these colourful abstract macro images have even won awards, and today I'll show you exactly how I create them. One of the things I love most about photography is that it allows us to see ordinary subjects in extraordinary ways. A ribbon is just a ribbon until you start looking at it through a lens. Suddenly it becomes flowing colours, abstract shapes and patterns that barely resemble the original subject. And the best part is that almost anyone can try this, whether you're using a phone, a macro lens, or even a zoom lens. You can create these images from the comfort of your home. So if it's raining outside, if you're unable to get out, or if you just simply fancy trying something a little bit different, this might be the perfect photography project for you. This setup is wonderfully simple, and you don't need a lot to get started. First of all, you'll need a background. This can be coloured card, wallpaper samples, wrapping paper, fabric, a plain t-shirt, or pretty much anything with a plain colour and a reasonably smooth surface, such as this t-shirt here, which would be better if I smoothed the wrinkles out of it, I think. Our photography often encourages us to buy more gear, but this is one of those rare occasions where rummaging through a drawer can be just as effective as visiting a camera shop. Then you need either a camera or a phone. I use everything from a dedicated camera with a macro lens through to my 100 to 400 zoom lens. If you're using a camera, you don't have to use a macro lens. Something like extension tubes can help you get that little bit closer. If you're using a phone, then a clip-on macro lens can be useful, but it certainly isn't essential. I used an Apexel 100 for quite a few of my photos. The main thing you'll need is some way of using a slow shutter speed, and many phones now offer this through Pro mode, or there's apps available that allow a greater control, such as the slow shutter app. You might also need an ND filter for your camera, depending on how bright the light is coming through your window. Because we're deliberately using slower shutter speeds, too much light can become a problem. An ND filter acts a little like sunglasses for your lens, reducing the amount of light entering the camera and allowing those slower shutter speeds. Optional extras could include a tripod with a ball head, which can be helpful if you can't hold a camera for very long. Although I have been known to sit on the sofa with a camera balanced on a cushion on my knee, with the ribbon on card on the floor. Not exactly the glamorous side of photography, but it works surprisingly well. You might also want a slow shutter app if you're shooting on a phone. And finally, the ribbons. And this is where the fun begins. I use colourful voile ribbons, but you can experiment with all sorts. From pastel ribbons, bright ribbons, two-tone ribbons, striped ribbons, patterned ribbons, pleated ribbons, the list is endless. But each type creates slightly different shapes and textures in the final image. The setup. The biggest consideration here is the light. I normally work beside a window so that I can use the natural light there. But on bright days I often have to soften the light by partially closing the curtains or the blinds. Shiny ribbons can sometimes produce a glare, So I sometimes place everything inside my light tent, but if you don't have one, don't worry. A white sheet over the window or a simple foldable diffuser can work just as well. I don't normally use flash for this because I prefer the softer look of the natural light, but experimentation is always encouraged. Some of the best photography discoveries can happen entirely by accident. One thing I love about this technique is how flexible it is. Quite often I'll shoot wide open at f1.8 or f2.8 because I enjoy the dreamy softness it creates. But I've also had great results at f5.6 using my 100 to 400mm lens. In fact, some of those images were created with ribbons and coloured cards scattered across the floor while I sat comfortably on the sofa. And it was one of those images that won a gold award with the SWPP. It's probably not the setup camera that manufacturers imagine when designing their equipment, but the photographs don't seem to mind. Because intentional camera movement is involved, there are very few strict rules. So try different apertures, experiment, and see what happens. Some of my favourite images came from settings that I just wasn't expecting to work. Phone photographers may have less control over the aperture, but that certainly didn't stop me creating images that I was happy with, and we'll talk a little bit more about phones in a moment. Shutter speed is where the magic starts to happen. Most of my images are created using shutter speeds between 1/4 of a second and 1 second. I use similar settings on my phone as well. Sometimes a shallow depth of field combined with just a tiny amount of movement is enough. Other times I'll use a full second to create a more flowing, painterly effect. There just isn't one perfect setting. The ribbon doesn't know what shutter speed you're using. It's simply waiting to surprise you. The movement technique. Now this is my favourite part. This is where photography stops feeling technical and starts feeling playful. Your movement might be small, gentle sweeps in one direction, or you might rotate the camera slightly as you take the photograph. You could zigzag, move closer in, or move further away, or combine several of the movements together. One technique that I particularly enjoy is moving towards a spiral of ribbon while the shutter is open. That often creates wonderful flowing shapes, as you can see here. I love experimenting with intentional camera movement, and one photographer whose work has inspired me enormously is Eric Marm. I'm always looking for ways to adapt some of the ideas that he uses into my own work. So there may well be some more experiments to come in future videos. You can see how easy it is using the phone with the Apexel 100 macro lens and the slow shutter app. This lens is so easy to just clip onto your phone and perfect for this project if you just want a lightweight, easy way to shoot. 1/3 of the photos in this video and also lots of the video footage was taken using this combination, just making the whole project so easy. Even though these images are abstract, your composition remains important. I often follow the natural line of a ribbon leading through the frame. Leading lines can still guide the viewer's eye. The rule of thirds can still work beautifully as well. And spirals can create strong focal points and natural visual flow. Of course, because this is abstract photography, breaking the rules can be just as rewarding. Sometimes an image works simply because the colours feel good together. Sometimes logic takes the afternoon off and creativity takes over, and that's perfectly fine too. Colour combinations can completely change the mood of an image, so it's worth paying attention to how your ribbon colours interact with the background. Try different coloured cards and try different fabrics. Try combinations that you don't think will work as well. Some of the most successful images often come from unexpected pairings. For example, I originally assumed a bright red card would be far too overpowering. Instead, I ended up loving the results. When I first started creating these photographs, I mainly used soft pastel backgrounds. Since then, I've discovered that darker backgrounds can work beautifully as well, creating stronger contrast and a little more dramatic appearance. It's another reminder that experimentation is often the best teacher. The way you arrange the ribbon has a huge impact on the final image as well. I particularly enjoy creating spirals, and to make this easier, I'll often wrap ribbon around a tin or another cylindrical object beforehand. This helps to create lovely flowing curves and swirls. But spirals aren't the only option. Twisting the ribbon can create interesting textures as well. Arranging it in circles can produce completely different shapes. And sometimes I simply throw the ribbon down and see what happens. Not every photography technique benefits from controlled chaos, but this one definitely does. When it comes to selecting your images, be warned, this part can take longer than the photography itself. Once you start experimenting, it's very easy to take hundreds of images. Ask me how I know. When it comes to choosing favourites, personal taste plays a huge role. We all respond differently to colour, shape and mood. The next consideration is what you intend to do with the image. Are you creating photographs purely for enjoyment? Do you want to print them? Turn them into greetings cards? Display them on your wall? Or perhaps enter them into competitions as I did? If competition work is your goal, compositional and visual impact becomes especially important. Sometimes a small crop can strengthen an image dramatically. It's well worth experimenting during the editing stage as well. I genuinely think that these photographs have enormous wall art potential. The colours can be uplifting and the shapes are unique, and every single image feels slightly different. I'd actually love to see some printed on a variety of papers too, like fine art papers, pearl papers, metallic papers maybe. Each would probably bring out different qualities in the colours and textures. Most importantly though, this is simply a fun photography project. It's inexpensive, it's accessible, and it can be done from home. And it reminds us that creative photography doesn't always require exotic locations or expensive subjects. Sometimes all it takes is a ribbon, a little movement, and the willingness to experiment. If you decide to give this a try, I'd love to know how you get on, and who knows, your next award-winning image might be hiding in a roll of ribbon that you've forgotten you even own. I do intend to experiment with this technique more myself, and I even have some unusual ribbons on order. But there is so much more that we can use other than just ribbons. A quick rummage in my craft boxes revealed some lovely wool, which gave nice results. And I have a large supply of unusual wool to play with, so watch this space and see what else I come up with. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.